Daniel Mercer was a billionaire tech mogul with a spotless public image. Olivia Hart was his beautiful, pregnant wife, beloved by fans and media alike. But behind the glossy magazine covers and stage smiles was a terrifying secret, one that would end with Olivia abandoned in a freezing wilderness, fighting for her life, and Daniel at the center of a chilling murder plot. To the outside world, Daniel Mercer and Olivia Hart had it all. Daniel was one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country, the founder and CEO of a cybersecurity company that rose to prominence almost overnight. His face often appeared on magazine covers, his interviews praised his business genius, and tech investors viewed him as a visionary. Olivia, on the other hand, was the graceful complement to his ambitious energy. A former model who had transitioned into a successful interior designer, she had built a brand of her own, decorating luxury homes and boutique hotels. They met at a gala in San Francisco, and within a year, they were married. Their wedding was an opulent affair covered by fashion and lifestyle outlets, with aerial shots of their vineyard venue splashed across the internet. People admired them, not just for their wealth or beauty, but for the image they projected. They donated generously to charities, often appeared together at public events, and posted photos of quiet getaways and candle-lit dinners. It was the kind of romance that felt effortless and pure. When Olivia announced her pregnancy in a sponsored magazine interview, it seemed like the couple had reached another perfect milestone. She spoke excitedly about the nursery plans, how Daniel rubbed her back every night, and how thrilled he was to become a father. But beyond the polished photos and glowing interviews, their marriage was quietly crumbling. Olivia had started skipping public events. Close friends noticed she stopped smiling the way she used to. There were whispers about her moving out temporarily, though no one could confirm it. Daniel continued attending tech conferences alone and appeared visibly tense during interviews. He chalked it up to stress and the pressures of running a billion-dollar company. Olivia, meanwhile, slowly faded from the public eye. No one questioned it too much. Celebrities often sought privacy during pregnancy, and with a mansion hidden deep in the mountains near Aspen, it was easy to disappear without raising concern. Despite the silence, cracks in their fairy tale began to show. Daniel's business, which had once seemed unstoppable, was reportedly facing setbacks. Rumors of lawsuits and government scrutiny had started circling online, although nothing had been confirmed. Some industry analysts noted the company's valuation was slipping. Still, the Mercers maintained appearances. They posted old photos, kept their profiles curated, and smiled for the occasional paparazzi shot. Then came the trip that changed everything. Daniel claimed he wanted to take Olivia on a short hiking retreat, one last quiet escape before the baby came. He told staff they'd be gone for just the day and that they didn't need assistance. That morning, they left the house together. Olivia was dressed warmly, her growing belly visible beneath a thick sweater. Daniel carried a backpack and seemed in good spirits. No one thought much of it. The trail near their estate was one they had used before. But by nightfall, Daniel returned home alone, and Olivia was nowhere to be found. The news of Olivia Hart's disappearance spread quickly, first through local news stations in Colorado, then across national headlines. Daniel Mercer reported her missing shortly after sundown, claiming they had been hiking a familiar trail near their Aspen estate when she wandered off to take some photos. He said he had waited for her to return, but when she didn't, he panicked and called for help. He sounded shaken on the phone, his voice tight with emotion. Within hours, local authorities launched a full-scale search operation, knowing that time was critical, especially given Olivia's advanced pregnancy and the rapidly dropping temperatures in the mountains. Search and rescue teams combed the heavily wooded terrain with flashlights, night vision equipment, and thermal drones. Bloodhounds were brought in, helicopters flew overhead, and volunteers from nearby towns joined the effort. Olivia's last known location was marked, but there were no clear tracks, no signs of struggle, and no immediate clues. The forest was quiet, the ground covered with leaves and early frost, making it hard to trace her steps. As the days passed with no sign of her, hope began to fade. The public watched closely, gripped by the unfolding drama. News stations ran hourly updates, flashing photos of Olivia's smiling face alongside clips of Daniel pacing outside their home. He gave a tearful statement to reporters, pleading for her safe return. People rallied behind him at first, sending messages of support and organizing vigils in Olivia's honor. On social media, the hashtag #RuleFindOliviaHart trended for days, but not everyone was convinced. A few reporters noticed something odd about Daniel's behavior. He didn't participate in the search parties, instead choosing to remain at the estate. Some said he seemed distant, even distracted. He didn't accompany law enforcement on follow-up visits to the trail and declined to speak with Olivia's family, who had flown in from New York. Rumors began to swirl, questions about the timeline of events, inconsistencies in Daniel's account, and suspicions about his calm demeanor in the days following her disappearance. Investigators, though professional and measured in their comments, were beginning to share those doubts. The GPS data from Daniel's vehicle told a different story than the one he gave. According to tracking logs, he had taken a detour that morning, nearly 45 minutes off the route he claimed to have driven. He couldn't explain why. He said he had gotten lost, that maybe the signal had dropped or the device had glitched, but police quietly marked it as suspicious. The forest was vast and the cold unrelenting. Each passing day made survival less likely. With no food, no shelter, and no way to call for help, most believed Olivia could not have lasted long. Yet there was still no trace of her, no clothing, no belongings, not even footprints. It was as if she had simply vanished into thin air. Then, on the 6th day, everything changed. A rescue team, scouring an area well beyond the original search radius, stumbled upon something unexpected. A torn piece of fabric caught in the branches of a low-hanging pine. Nearby, beneath a rocky ledge, they saw movement. What they found would turn the case upside down. The rescue team that found Olivia Hart almost missed her entirely. They were covering an area nearly 10 miles from where Daniel had reported her missing, a part of the forest considered unlikely because of its steep terrain and remote location. The only reason they searched there was due to a last-minute hunch from one of the team leaders who noticed unusual marks on a topographical map, a spot that looked disturbed from the aerial drone scans. The terrain was rugged, filled with jagged rocks, thick underbrush, and uneven ground. It wasn't a place someone would wander into by accident, let alone a woman 7 months pregnant. Near a rocky overhang, they spotted a torn jacket, bright fabric snagged on branches just above eye level. When they moved closer, they saw a figure lying motionless beneath the ledge, barely shielded from the cold wind. It was Olivia. Her face was pale, her lips cracked, and her clothes dirty and torn. She was conscious, but too weak to speak. Her arms were scratched, her legs swollen, and she appeared to be in severe pain. Somehow, against all odds, she had survived. The rescuers immediately radioed for help. Olivia was airlifted to a nearby hospital where doctors rushed to treat her for hypothermia, dehydration, and internal injuries. Within hours of being stabilized, she went into labor. Her baby girl was born premature but alive. Nurses described the delivery room as tense and emotional. Olivia was barely strong enough to push, but she fought with everything she had. Doctors and hospital staff were amazed she had made it. The injuries she suffered from the fall, paired with the harsh weather conditions and lack of food or water, should have been fatal. But Olivia had found ways to survive. She drank from small puddles, ate pine needles and berries, and used fallen leaves to cover herself from the cold. Her sheer willpower combined with instinct had kept her alive long enough to be found. As the medical team worked to stabilize her and the baby, police officers stood by, waiting. They had questions, lots of them. And once Olivia could speak, she didn't hesitate. She told them everything. Daniel hadn't been acting strangely just in the past few weeks. He had been distant for months. The trip into the forest was not spontaneous, she said. Daniel had suggested it days in advance, insisting on taking her to a secluded trail for some quiet time before the baby arrived. He packed the bag, controlled the route, and led the way. At a remote point in the hike, far from any marked trail, he told her to stop and wait while he took a phone call. She sat down to rest. Moments later, he came up behind her and shoved her with both hands. Olivia fell hard, tumbling over a ledge and landing on the rocky slope below. The pain was instant, and she blacked out. When she awoke, Daniel was gone. No calls, no yelling for help, just silence and the growing fear that he had left her there to die. What she didn't know was that her escape had just begun. And now, it was Daniel's turn to face the consequences. As soon as Olivia Hart gave her statement, the investigation into Daniel Mercer shifted into high gear. Authorities wasted no time executing search warrants at the couple's Aspen estate and Daniel's company headquarters. What they uncovered painted a chilling portrait of a man whose life was quietly unraveling beneath the surface. On paper, Daniel was still the face of a billion-dollar empire, but behind closed doors, he was drowning in legal trouble, financial missteps, and desperation. For months, Daniel's company had been under federal investigation for manipulating security, contracts, and inflating its value to investors. His fortune, though still vast, was tied up in assets that were rapidly losing value. Behind the scenes, lawsuits were mounting. Quiet layoffs had occurred at his company, and confidential emails revealed frantic efforts to move funds and delay audits. It became clear to investigators that Daniel's glamorous life was a carefully maintained illusion on the verge of collapse. Then came the most damning discovery: a life insurance policy taken out on Olivia just 2 weeks before the hiking trip. It was valued at $25 million, with Daniel listed as the sole beneficiary. The policy documents were found in a locked cabinet in his office, along with handwritten notes detailing Olivia's medical history and several printouts of hiking trails marked with red ink. It wasn't just suspicious, it was premeditated. Surveillance footage from a gas station near the trail added another layer to the story. On the morning of the hike, Daniel was seen filling his SUV, but not before stepping into the convenience store. There, cameras captured him purchasing a coil of rope, heavy-duty gloves, and a collapsible shovel. None of those items were found on the trail or among his belongings. Investigators speculated he may have hidden them or used them and discarded the evidence. Either way, The intention was clear. Further forensic analysis of Daniel's vehicle showed specks of dirt and pine needles that didn't match the terrain of the trail he claimed they walked. Instead, they were consistent with the remote area where Olivia had been found, an area he told police they had never entered. GPS logs from his SUV confirmed the detour. He had driven out that way alone a few days before the hike, likely scouting the location. Police arrested Daniel at his mansion late one evening, just days after Olivia's rescue. He didn't resist. News footage captured him being led out in handcuffs, his face blank, refusing to answer shouted questions from reporters. The public was stunned. The man who had cried on camera and begged for his wife's return was now charged with her attempted murder. In court documents, prosecutors alleged that Daniel had planned the crime meticulously, intending to make Olivia's death look like a tragic accident. With the life insurance payout, he could pay off his debts and quietly rebuild his empire. But he hadn't counted on one thing: Olivia surviving. Her strength and the sharp instincts of a rescue team had shattered the illusion he tried to create. And just when the case seemed airtight, a final twist would bring everything into sharper focus. Just as prosecutors were preparing to rest their case, a new piece of evidence surfaced, one that would seal Daniel Mercer's fate beyond any doubt. It came in the form of a man named Marcus Duval, Daniel's former executive assistant. He had worked for Daniel for nearly 4 years, managing his calendar, handling his correspondence, and often overhearing things others weren't meant to hear. Marcus had quietly left the company 2 months before Olivia's disappearance, citing personal reasons, though now it was clear he had been disturbed by what he had witnessed. Marcus approached the district attorney's office with something explosive, an audio recording. He had made it weeks before the incident, during a late evening at Daniel's private office. At the time, Marcus said he had grown increasingly uneasy about the way Daniel spoke about Olivia. He talked about her as if she were an obstacle, not a partner. One night, suspecting something was wrong, Marcus left his phone recording in his pocket while retrieving files from Daniel's office. The recording played in court behind closed doors. On it, Daniel's voice was unmistakable. He was speaking to an unknown person, calmly laying out a plan. He discussed the life insurance policy, the best time to stage a hiking accident, and the likelihood of Olivia being found in the wilderness. He even made a dark joke, saying, "It's not murder if nature finishes the job." The jury listened in stunned silence. The man who had painted himself as a heartbroken husband had, in his own words, revealed the truth. The recording was the final blow. Jurors deliberated for less than a day before delivering a unanimous guilty verdict. Daniel Mercer was convicted on all counts: attempted murder, insurance fraud, and reckless endangerment of a minor. During sentencing, the judge described his actions as cold, calculated, and deeply disturbing. Daniel showed little emotion as he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The trial captivated the nation. True crime enthusiasts dissected every moment, news anchors debated his motives, and Olivia's story became a symbol of both tragedy and resilience. People couldn't understand how a man with everything, wealth, status, and a family on the way, could plot something so heartless. Yet the truth was undeniable. Olivia, though physically and emotionally scarred, survived. After the trial, she left Colorado with her newborn daughter and moved to a small coastal town where no one recognized her. She declined interviews, turned down book deals, and asked to be left alone. Occasionally, she quietly supported organizations that help victims of domestic abuse and women in crisis. Her name rarely appeared in the news after that, and she preferred it that way. Daniel Mercer's empire collapsed. His company dissolved, his assets were liquidated, and his name became synonymous with betrayal. The man once hailed as a genius was now remembered as a criminal who tried to erase the one person who trusted him the most. And in the end, the wilderness that was meant to be Olivia's grave became the place she proved strongest of all.